From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napsa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and as you may see through this broadcast, I have two different beverages. I am drinking both coffee and tea, so if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be treated to two different Twin Peaks mugs. Enjoy.
I love this, double-fisted in the morning. It's been a fun weekend. We're going to dive into our second news episode of the week. If you watched live yesterday on the channel or caught up with our mall trailer review, you know why. We were, fortunately, getting ready to record our Star Wars questions and live news as normal. And then Disney, Lucasfilm, Darth Maul decided to drop a trailer for Maul Shadow Lord. So check out that review here. We're going to catch up with news. Before we do that, we always want to remind you today's podcast is brought to you by our shop on Fourth Wall. Check out our merch store. Yeah, check it out. Pick up a t-shirt, pint glass, coffee mug to help support the show. Represent ForceCenter out in the galaxy, out in the wild. Always say, hey, if you have an item that you'd like our logo on it or one of our catchphrases that's there, let us know. We'll add it there. You can go to forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com, forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, hey, like, subscribe, all those things, and you'll find the links in the description below. That's the ad, but we're also highlighting what we got going on Patreon, sir.
That is right. It's been great to be spending a little bit of time on Patreon because we've been doing our questions episodes again, our Cues of the Force, and collecting questions from patrons on Patreon and doing special live shows most Fridays, any Friday that we can, and getting patrons to call in. So it's just a great way to for us to get to know some of you better, and also to help keep this whole thing afloat. I've also been doing some accounting and taxes, and I know it's a hard time for everyone. It is a hard time. It is a dark time for the ForceCenter Rebellion. So if you're in a place to want to help out on Patreon, this is a time we could really use it, and hopefully everybody could use the joy of being in that community of friendly Star Wars fans that we have grown around the podcast.
Yeah, any level gets you in. So if you want to jump in, now's a good time. But like Joseph said, yeah, when my trips to McDonald's are costing me $19, I get it. I just complained about this on my podcast this week, Joseph. We'll get to the news, but I bought some Big League Chew for my sports card ASMR channel. Mm-hmm. And I know you probably didn't play baseball and have Big League Chew growing up, but maybe that doesn't mean you can't enjoy gum, obviously. Joseph, this is about 5 times smaller than what it used to be.
Big League Chew is down to the little leagues, huh?
Yeah. Old man to clouds.
Is it strings? Is it strings of gum? Yeah. Okay, it's like gum spaghetti, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to suggest that you have to play sports to have it, people out there. I'm just saying that's how I obviously spent my time as a kid having it. But yes, you're the strings of gum.
Right, because it's supposed to be like you're chewing tobacco, right?
That's exactly. Hey, you're playing baseball and you want a wad in your mouth? Try it with gum and upgrade later. Yeah.
Yeah. I love all those just heartwarming stories about, your parent teaching you to throw ball, your parent teaching you to just spit angrily when things don't go your way. And the kids need to learn somehow. So Big Little League Chew.
Video viewers of ForceCenter know that occasionally I have this weird electric prop cigarette that it's like a fidget spinner for me, but it looks weird because I don't smoke. But I as a kid, I had the candy cigarettes and I did the whole thing, pulled it out of the box, tapped it, pretended to light it and put it in. And my dad literally was like, give me those. Oh, the 70s and early 80s.
Yep.
There we go. All right. Star Wars news catch up. This was news over the weekend, and we'll just pull the curtain back. You put a lot of work into gathering some news and questions, and the mall trailer pushed it back.
It did. I got a little grumpy because I'm so happy for the mall trailer, but it was so nice the last couple trailers when they gave us heads up. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about it, but I was like preparing a little bit more. But there's some fun stuff in the Empire magazine, and also the Grogu appearance at the Oscars stole the show. It was wonderful and weird to see him look directly into the camera. Obviously, I'm glad that in the actual narrative show, he doesn't often look directly in the camera like he's just in the office. But it was like really cute and also like a little frightening. He's like, he's going to crawl out like the girl from The Ring.
That's funny.
But get to some of this info from the Empire magazine. A lot more news is dropping. The actual magazine came out on Thursday, but the articles I found were like, this is what people took pictures from the articles and from
Mm,
the physical magazine and put it on Reddit and that. So a little of the chain of information is a little wonky.
mm,
I went to my local newsstand and they didn't have it. But the snippets we're sharing today come from coverage on Star Wars News Net. And we are very much cherry picking this stuff to talk about. There's other stuff floating out there, but it was hard for me to. Is that did Sigourney Weaver really say that? So I left off any of the did Sigourney Weaver really say that quotes, the things that were just screenshots from an unknown source. I left
mm,
off. But here we have a quote from Academy Award winning composer Ludwig Göransson, who just
mhm,
won an Oscar for the soundtrack to Sinners, or for the score to Sinners. He said this about Grogu. In season one, he's obviously not as much of a presence as he is in this film. Now he's got a lot more screen time. He's a lot more present. He's not a little kid anymore. He's more grown up. He's more independent. And there's a place to take him, which is one of my favorite parts of the film, where you really get to spend some time with him and get to know him. So some of this feels like very like straightforward, even from the trailers. He's being shot with a lot more agency. He's not in the pram. He's
mm,
riding the shoulder. He's jumping around. I think one of the earliest images from the film, from that first teaser, is him looking through the binocs and
mhm,
gathering information for himself. He's really being presented as a part of the duo, part of the team. We've seen shots where he is off on his own, but there's a little something different about what Ludwig's saying of like, but this is a different Grogu. He's not 50 anymore. He's like 60 now in maturity. So what are you hoping for in the quality time we're going to get with Grogu, and who do you think he is as a more mature being?
I think this, I take this he's being more present. I take it as, a little more panache, a little more moxie, a little more, obviously some agency. I like the trailer showing him jumping back into the prey. I'm like, hey, what are you waiting for? Let's do this. Let's do it old
Hmm.
school. I love that, and I love the. I know there was a story out there, and again, I didn't have time to confirm it. And I don't know if you did as well. That Kathleen Kennedy had said something about, oh, we're not going to hear him speak in the film, but,
Hmm.
which hey, if true, great. I was looking forward to maybe some words, but who knows? Who knows? I'll take her at her word if that story was true. I didn't have time to research it, but he hasn't, especially in his appearance at the Oscars. To me, he hasn't grown like literally physically, right?
No.
He still looks the same, and it's almost like in a Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, the series plays with time in a weird way that can even sometimes confuse the audience. A scene after a scene is sometimes months apart or weeks apart. But Samuel Tarly and Gilly's kid, the kid that it never grew, like barely grew.
That's right.
It barely grew. It's one of my little kind of not even a complaint, just funny little things about a show I love dearly all seasons. So I'm kind of like, is Grogu in that spot where like, yeah, you're right. He's 75 now, maybe by whatever the age, Grogu years he is. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. I love that you brought up the binocular kind of scene. Like he knows what he's doing more.
Hmm.
He might get into fights. He's got weapons. Like we've seen him grow, and that just speaks to he's going to walk into a room and fill it up. I like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I love how much agency he clearly has in the trailer, and obviously with all those great scenes of him in the forest, and he's obviously going to be separated from Din. But this thought of who is he when he's a little older, um, I just
Mm,
love that, because I think he's a character who has experienced a lot of trauma, and I think
mm,
he's a character who's shown is kind of fearful, But then he went off and he learned with Luke, and I feel like he's like this kind of character who's like, okay, I haven't fully dealt with my trauma in my past, but I know I'm traumatized,
mm,
and so I'm going to seek out the not trauma of life. I'm going to seek out peace, calm, joy. I'm going to be assertive, but I'm not going to be cruel. Like, I think that kind of that the using the force to lullaby the rancor.
mm,
So I feel like he still wants to hang with dad. He still wants to steal cookies,
mm-hmm.
all that stuff. He still wants to push buttons for fun. But there's a little bit of
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna show everybody I'm more mature and grown up, and that scene
Yeah.
where Luke shows him that the Force is more than using it a tool to get what you want, right? I think, the frog beat is funny, but it is just like, this is a tool to get what I want.
Right.
And, when Luke takes him up to those like tall reeds and just has him feel the peace that is possible, I feel like this is a character who's like, what is there's other stuff in the world for me that isn't trauma, and I'm actively looking for it.
Yeah. Seeking who he is even more. I love that. And maybe splitting hairs or threading needles here, but like you bring up the Rancor thing that was a choice. That was him learning the lessons of Luke, but also presented enough to where it's like, oh, he just kind of, stumbled into this solution, which again, he made the choice to, but it played as like, oh, Baby Yoda, the children will lead us. But I think it continues to grow. And I like what you're saying of him actively making choices to pursue his peace or peace for others and show what he's worth.
Yeah. Well, and I think he understands what he's going on. And I think he knows that he's in, Mandalorian kindergarten or maybe Mandalorian grad school. I don't know. But I think he knows, like, this is my time to learn and prove myself, So I think that's all fascinating. So all of this was, of course, coming from the composer, Ludwig Göransson. So what are your hopes for how Göransson's score might support Grogu's journey?
I guess I have a question. Housekeeping first, a little admin talk here. The Mando theme, which I'm so bad at humming and everything, but we all know the theme and recognize it. We'll just call it "This Is the Way." I don't know the actual title of it. I'm so bad with music. Apologize, people. That to me, that's not the Grogu theme, right? Does Grogu have a theme that we know of?
For me, when I think of Mando, I think of sort of the music. I think of that main theme, and then variations of it, and then sort of palettes within it. But yeah, there might absolutely be a Grogu theme, and people might be screaming at it at the screen or their podcast and humming it. But if there is, I don't know it, and we've been doing a Star Wars podcast for 10 years, so there's that.
On the fly research here, and I'm going to push past the AI summary to the actual article on Wikipedia. Grogu's theme is a theme used for the character Din Grogu in the television series Star Wars, or Star Wars Mandalorian. Yeah, that I got. The theme starts being used. Here's the information. The theme starts being used in Season 2 and is present in 3 tracks. The Season 2 soundtrack snacks back together and reunited and goes from there. So, all right. So, on the fly clarification. If anyone out there has more information, by all means, politely post it in the comments. Yes. I only bring that up to this makes me think of Rey's theme and John Williams just taking that and using it in different ways and often bigger and bolder ways to what I call the rock opera version in Rise of Skywalker when her and Kylo are fighting. I would love to experience that. I would love that Ludwig would, like start here, and then now we got this. Now we got the yes, no, Grogu's theme of him out in the world, and I would love to just experience that.
Yeah, and I'll have to go listen to that specific track. I guess I'm sure music heads are like very well aware of it, but my point is, it's sort of like I don't think you have to be like a real deep music, aficionado to know Leia's theme or Yoda's theme or Rey's theme, and I don't think Grogu's theme is at that level yet. So I don't know if Göransson is going to take the one that exists or build a new one. But I mean, I love how much the sort of lonely Western motif is what's so powerful about the Mando theme. It really is like a gunslinger walked into a bar and now there's going to be a duel. But in space is the vibe of that. So I would love to see those sounds and those tools used to build something, more mystical for Din.
Mystical Din.
Yeah, for mystical Din Grogu. Yes, mystical Din Grogu. Yeah,
Din Grogu.
Yeah. We just recently rewatched Sinners, and obviously that film is about music in a lot of ways, and just so great the way different elements are pulled in and made cohesive. And I'm really excited to see the score expand off of what's in the TV show and become a little bit more weird and a little bit more different.
Just in general, talking about the music, excited to hear it and have it soak into my soul in a big screen environment. That's going to be fun.
yeah, people talk about, and we'll talk about again today how to make the film feel cinematic. And I think
Mm.
yes, having your sternum rattled by Grogu's
Yeah.
theme is one of the things
Hmm.
that will make it feel cinematic.
Hmm.
The Star Wars Newsnet article also shared a picture of the Imperial warlord, played by actor Johnny Coyne. We don't officially know the name of this empire, this Imperial, but Jon Favreau teases in the interview that you'll like his character name when you hear it. Um, so there's some other stuff going on in this photo that feels maybe spoilery to me. So we're not
Yes.
talking about that. Just
Yes.
talking about this Imperial warlord, played by this actor. Believe we did see this Imperial warlord in Mandalorian season 3,
Hmm.
but apparently we are not yet familiar with his name. So, what do you think Favreau is getting at with this name drop? Is there a connection to a legacy character, or is this like an inside joke? Is it going to be named like Fav John or something? Because I've already seen people kind of going wild with it, and I think it might be one of
Yeah.
those pump the brakes moments.
I actually really agree with you. I'm glad you framed the question that way. Look, I hope it's something that makes Alex Damon, have to create 6 videos about what Legends thinks he's in, and Alex and Molly get all the clicks. I think it's going to be general oppression. Like I think it's going to be something like that, where you're like, oppression. Oh, I got it. I think it's that because I don't know.
Yes,
I don't
General
know.
Arco Ubio. Yes. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I want it to be. Yeah, I get it. I want the connection, and I totally can envision Dave, promotion or not, being like, hey. But I also see John, old dad joke John, being like, what if it's like, that's
yeah.
where I go.
Yeah, I just my joke for the few people who will care is
Mhm.
that I want his name to be Polish accountant, because that's the name of the character that this actor plays in Twin Peaks. It's one scene, but he's terrifying out of
Mm,
nowhere. It's so good.
mm,
So
mm,
I'm really excited for this actor to be in Star Wars. Um, and I like the weird thing about this to me is, even if I wanted to sort of go down that rabbit hole of ooh, what connection could it be, like there absolutely some deep cut Legends thing is possible.
mm,
But for modern canon, like a lot of the possibilities, like, well, they've already identified one of the Imperial warlords is Brendel Hux.
mhm,
They've
mhm.
already, it's not that he looks like Balian, but they've already cast Balian. Like,
Right, right.
um, Gallius Rax ain't going to be there. He's certainly
Mm-mm,
not Ray Sloan.
mm-mm,
So some of
mm-mm.
the like, the field doesn't feel really wide for
Yeah,
who could that be right now, unless he's talking about a Legends deep cut for a beloved Legends Imperial warlord that I'm not familiar with.
yeah, or like some family name that we go, oh, like
Yeah,
all of it's fun.
I'm a little afraid that he's going to be like Kendall Ozzel's cousin Kendar or something.
Kendar Ozel.
Kendar
Uh,
Ozzel out for
yeah.
revenge.
Chet Gergerod. Yeah, okay. I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can live with
yeah.
that. I can live with
But
that.
do you have any connection to this actor? Are you excited for this actor, or is
Yeah, no. Excited for the Twin Peaks connection, and yeah, he looked menacing in season 3 of Mando, so he looks like a good Imperial. Like not like some of the ones we're talking about. Some of the stuffy, the Emperor's coming here. He's not that. He seems like, yeah, well, you haven't paid your dues. Come
Yeah, he
around
seems
here.
like he would definitely blast some people in the knees himself, and not
Right.
be hiding behind the stormtroopers kind of vibe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what are you hoping for out of the Imperial Warlord part of the story? We haven't talked about this much, and I think I'm thrilled that they've been doing a good job with the trailers in leaving it a little bit up to, like, looks like the Hutt twins are probably the primary
Mm-hmm.
antagonist, but it looks like they're also probably in league with the general Polish accountant here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, but then you also got Embo in the mix.
Right.
How much do you want out of the Imperial Warlord part of the story, and how this is a part of the timeline where the fascists are, we know they are actually gaining
Mm-hmm.
secretly power, but the our heroes feel like they're mopping up the remnants.
I want maybe the Imperial warlords to have surprisingly little compared to what other people might want. And I think it's important that there, it's a great world build. And you're right, it would, that state of the galaxy kind of thing that we've been talking about since, quite frankly, 2015 with Force Awakens. I think it would be great to not just offer clues, but to play around with that and be in that world. But there's something intriguing about this movie, not being outside of the lines of lore during this time, but the underworld side of it and the kind of the darker, shadowy parts of the galaxy still strong at this point. I think I just want to have it play in that world, not because I'm afraid or adverse to connections. Like, is this guy on the phone with Thrawn? Is this guy just that stuff's cool and good. I just kind of want I want the movie to be in its own arena, maybe pun intended, if that makes sense. Where I know for a lot of folks who are just general audience fans, they're not worried who Gallius Rex was or Ray Sloan is. I get it. That's for us. So you need to have just as much as, got it, Imperials, bad guys, TIE fighters, bad guys. I do think you kind of need that, and they provide that. But you know what I mean? Where I want it to kind of be its own little thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think there might be some, subtle little nod to what's going on with Thrawn's return in Ahsoka season 2. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be a major plot thread. I think for me, like the way this show is being set up is Din is trying to show Grogu how to move morally through the galaxy like a good Mandalorian, and Din himself has evolved on what that means. And we've got the great quote in the trailer from Colonel Ward from Sigourney Weaver about this isn't about revenge, it's about stopping another war. So I really hope that
that's a good point,
that the Imperial warlords and the Hutts, even if all they're doing really is like we're trying to gain more power and get a foothold in these systems or over these criminal enterprises, that they can really be like, this is who we don't want to be. Let's not become them. So there's part of me that feels like I like this actor Johnny Coyne because of the few things I've seen him in, he's incredibly intense and good at playing like human awfulness. And I'm just really hoping that the Imperial warlord would be nice if it wasn't just sort of like another Imperial, but like I want him to be doing something awful. I want him to be doing something that is in stark moral contrast to what Din is trying to teach Grogu, and even make that temptation to be like, should we kill this guy? Like, no, it's not what we're about. I wouldn't mind if part of the plot was setting up child abduction to, set up First Order without getting too deep into the weeds. And that to me, that would have this great sort of thematic with where the whole Mandalorian show started out with. Din is pretty merciless, but not when it comes to a kid. They're both foundlings. They're both children who were brought into a loving family, not abducted.
Yeah. That's an interesting lore wrinkle too. Now, and again, I said good point, but the Sigourney Weaver of it all, we're starting to trying to stop a war. Imagine leaders thinking that in this world, but I that does lend itself to more of what you're talking about with the Imperial warlord having a bigger part, or at least the warlords.
Yes, yeah, at least the stuff they're trying to put in motion, or maybe he'll just get bumped off in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the article also reveals that the Mandalorian and Grogu is not using the volume like the series did. This time there are more practical sets, Phil Tippett stop motion and puppets, and it's filmed with IMAX in mind. Star Wars Newsnet says hopefully that will reassure anyone worried that this film will look like a bonus episode of The Mandalorian ported to the big screen. So, man, it feels like as long as Star Wars has existed, there has been part of the discussion is the technology used to create it, sometimes in admiration and sometimes in in fear. So what do you make of this? Do you, again, this is sort of like that. Star Wars Newsnet does great work, but they are also reporting what other people said was in a print edition. So there could be some telephone game going on. Do you believe the volume wasn't used at least for some things?
I do. I'm recalling a Filoni quote, I'm paraphrasing, of course, of him saying, I think it might even been talking about his movie, which at this point, I don't believe it's going to happen in the way it was presented at Celebration 23. But he said something about like we know by this point what looks good and what doesn't look good on the volume, and that lends itself to them having an understanding of how best to use it and being aware of it. We'll talk about the cycle of backlash in your next question here, but that just kind of made me realize, okay, they know what they're doing, and that might have been before this movie or before this came a movie. It was a while ago. So I believe it. I believe it, and obviously the volume is used. Obviously, could be a combination of things, and could be background. The magic of movies. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I believe that Favreau really understands the challenge of making it feel bigger, and I think those quotes that he gave of like, I'm kind of reverse engineering what I did, because the first challenge was to make TV feel cinematic, and now I need to make sure cinema doesn't feel like TV. And I think I think that maybe the volume was used a little bit, but I'm sure it was used well, and I'm sure that Favreau was particularly well aware of if this feels too small, if this feels like it was all shot in a warehouse with a big screen, we're in trouble. Thrilled about Phil Tippett and the stop motion, and that's great. And more real sets are great too. But I think it's also is like, unless something comes out that's like, oh yeah, and we secretly managed to fly to Norway for the snow scenes.
Right.
Most of this was filmed in California, right? So I'm expecting just a lot of mountains. Maybe Grogu will take some influencer shots at a poppy field. Who knows? But
we'll shoot on the other side of the 118 this time.
Exactly.
Rocky Peak Church.
Exactly. So how do you feel about this sort of cycle of backlash to the volume? Because there's a little bit about the way this is being talked about that almost feels reminiscent of The Force Awakens, saying there's this negative attitude in the mid 20-teens about the amount of CGI and how it was used in the prequels. So we're going to really push hard, and everything's practical, everything's real. And this almost feels like a repetition of that cycle of like, we developed this amazing technology that makes these TV shows possible, and now we're like, don't worry, everybody, Phil Tippett's back. That's great for Phil Tippett, but how do you feel about that sort of cycle?
Is this like members of Gen Z buying flip phones again? Is this kind of the vibe? And I understand it. Look,
we used entirely flip phones for the production. All communication was done on flip phones. Johnny Favs only sends fax. Don't worry.
Look, kids, you don't remember or know what it was like to flirt via text when you had to like cycle through 3 letters on a pad number there. I'm not. This is not saying this to say me, this show, you, Jennifer, are part of a large influence in the Star Wars fandom. We've been around for a bit and everything, but there's moments where I look back at things I laid into heavily and wonder how much guilt should I have for it. I season 1 was kind of very vocal about some of the volume stuff didn't work, but then I always admitted things that I thought weren't the volume were. So I'm dumb. I'll let them do their thing. It's a Star Wars tradition. Obviously, the technology is going to get better. It's also a filmmaking thing. Like, that you start somewhere, and the volume was a big starting point. The stagecraft stuff. So I think it's they're learning it more and more. It's getting better. It was used. I didn't see it, but I know people were really happy with some of the use of it in The Batman. House of the Dragon used it successfully for like Storm's End, and also even some of the dragon scenes. There's, you can see its growth and use. So, but this is just kind of, it becomes the thing. You and I talk about people having sometimes the greatest hits of complaints for things, and I think this kind of became. Though I think there was some valid stuff early on. I think it didn't have the depth. It didn't have, you could kind of pick it out easily. I think. You and I have been, as much as we love the series, there's moments in Kenobi where, hey, who knows how much money or time they had, and it just didn't look as good in some spots. But there's so many talented people behind it, and I still love what it means to performers. When you hear the late Carl Weathers talk about to be able to, with your fellow performers, stare at a something together, and you're not imagining, you're seeing the same thing. I think that's why I still really stand behind it as something valuable. And let's be honest, George was heading this way. George was close. Kathleen Kennedy's talk about it. At the bottom of the hill, he wanted to build something like that's exciting for me too. And anyways, I don't know. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I was outspoken against the volume early on.
It's okay. I mean, I think it's a really cool evolution, a really cool step forward. But I think it is that um, I think it's a tool, in having a full set in your tool kit is really
Mhm.
great. And I think the volume is fantastic when it's used well. I think Kenobi has, to me, like the highs and the lows of the volume. And I think the
Mhm.
height is my beloved stabby Rock Moon, where Kenobi
Right.
and Vader have their fight, and it looks like a obscure paperback sci-fi novel you'd find used in a
Yep.
corner of an old bookstore in the 1980s. It looks beautiful, looks gorgeous. You're immersed in this fantasy world. And I think where the volume suffers is when you can feel the limitations of the physical space. And I think like
Mhm.
there's that emotionally so great when Riva is attacking the base where the path is hiding, and Kenobi and her have the great conversation through the door. But those wide shots of her menacing the base with the troops, and it just like they're just it's just too small of a space, and you can feel it. And it looks like they're all just like gathered in a closet.
Yeah.
um, and so to me,
Yeah.
it's like it's a tool. It's like, well, it's right for the right scenes and the right angles. And like I said before, I think the only place in the Mandalorian season 1 where it bothered me is when it was shot a little too flat in some of the, I think in chapter 5, and so it
Yeah.
looked like a stage set. It looked like here are our props, and then we have a
Mhm.
backdrop.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't
Mhm.
think it's good or bad. I think it's just a tool, and I think a lot of it is about that workflow of like, can you? It requires a different workflow. So can you zig and zag
Yeah.
in your workflow to use it? Because that's the thing that Tony Gilroy said of like, hey, we love our huge practical sets, and we couldn't have done it without them. There's a couple of shots that would have been great to use the volume, but it would have required us to totally
Right.
reverse our workflow for one scene, and we just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And for those that aren't super familiar with that, the Disney Gallery season 1 stuff has a great look at what that did and what it changes, and yeah, there's so many benefits to it, right? The
Hmm.
time and the way you can envision things. So I like that. Yeah. Yeah. There's just something to we're in the space and have been obviously for all these years, and we just are inadvertently part of the conversation sometimes, that where we are just too aware of things, and you and I and others in our age bracket, or just fans in general, will make the jokes of Han and Lando standing in front of what's clearly a painting of the Millennium Falcon: Return of the
Hmm.
Jedi. That wasn't treated the same way as a kid, because even though you kind of knew some of the magic, you weren't having weekly discussions about, are the matte paintings really good? Are they going to use the matte paintings in Return of the Jedi? And I just think, for better or worse, people are these are the conversations over the last 10, 12 years. Reshoots, director's fire, all these things dominate the intake of the art, understandably in some ways, because also you see it, and you just described the Kenobi scene. That's this great, powerful moment. The Riva Kenobi
Hmm.
conversation at the gate is one of my favorite Star Wars conversations. It's
It's
wrapped up in,
fantastic.
hey, yeah, they got the 501st and they're on the volume.
Yep.
you know, good for them. They get to wear their biker shirts at conventions one more year. Like, it. Sorry, cynical. Um, but yeah, but you know what I mean? Where it's just like,
Hmm.
and we're not going to stop. We're talking about it now. I get it. We're in a different era. You don't get to go back on that.
Hmm.
But I think it's part of the conversation.
Yeah. And for me, I think since people are going to be obsessed with it and it's going to be a part of the conversation, to me, it's really interesting to think about how have tastes evolved, how has knowledge evolved, and what is the value of a real set versus the volume. And for me, I think part of what was so great about the real sets in Andor was the undeniable scale of them. That
Mhm.
it is the tactical, and that's great.
Mhm.
But also just you know we grew up watching shows like Cheers, where like you're watching it and you disappear into it, but you know that literally like a stage play, there is a fourth wall that is gone because that's where the
Let's go.
audience sits to laugh at
Yeah.
Sam Malone, right?
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think I don't think the volume has to be that, but like
Hmm.
you look at the Gorman Plaza, and you know in your gut, like there's no front, there's no one angle that is the fourth wall where the audience is supposed to look in. This is a
Hmm.
a three-dimensional space that the reality can play at all different angles, and they can shoot from all different angles. And I think when the
Mhm.
volume really falls down, it's because it suddenly feels like Cheers. It suddenly feels like there's only one angle, and the audience
Yeah.
is on this side of it. Then there's some props
Mhm.
like a desk or a sand
Mhm.
dune, and then there's
Mhm.
this world behind it, and it doesn't feel three-dimensional, even though I know it literally is. And I think that to me is just fun to think about, of like what is immersive to us now, what makes us feel immersive. And I think as soon as we get a sense of anything being staged in a proscenium play like manner, it feels
Mhm.
flatter, and we sense the technology.
Yeah, yeah, we do. And again, we're obviously more aware of it. I've spoken about the beginnings of Force Awakens, of being a little, and Mark Ellis and I had a conversation on Schmoes about this, of like the opening scene. It was like, it felt a little smaller, right? And we're like, this is big
Hmm.
Star Wars, and I could tell this is a set. And of course, I've been on sets. I've been in your movies. I didn't really choke to death, folks, in his short film, but you should check it out. I understand how this stuff is made, but you're absolutely right, and it's just part of what's going on a little bit more. But it's also fascinating stuff, and it's amazing where we are with this. And my opinion started to change on it when um, I was hearing the Carl Weathers and seeing the Werner Herzog stuff, and being like, oh, I fell for that. Oh, I didn't know. I guess I'm
Hmm.
not as smart as I think. Like, and to see it help the performance is still why it's valuable to me.
Hmm. Yeah. So I can't wait to see the film, and I think it's going to be great in terms of the look. I think
How it
people are
looks.
going to be surprised.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more that will drip out of the old Empire magazine, but we're going to move on to some news that we haven't been talking about as much, and that is book news. We
Hmm.
haven't been able to keep up with the books for the most part, so we don't talk about the books as much. But Ken and I both read the first book in this series. That book is called Mask of Fear, and odds are good we'll read this new one. We got new information about the second book in the Reign of the Empire trilogy. Here is the info. After last year's The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed, Rebecca Roanhorse takes the reins for Edge of the Abyss. The novel will take place 1 year before the events of Andor Season 1, jumping way ahead in the timeline after the first book focused on the earliest days of the Empire. The book will continue the story of Bail and Mothma, including imperial threats to their daughters, but will also draw in many familiar names from the Andor television show: Anto Krieger, Luthen Rael, Clea Markey, Nissus Osar, Perrin Firtha, and Lita Mothma. The press release also promises more Gorman backstory on Gorman, an idealistic student group seeks to make meaningful change, unaware of the ISB agent who seeks to sabotage them from the inside. Um, Nisus
Hmm.
Osar is one of the I think the minister of, I can't remember, I think propaganda, I can't remember, enlightenment. Anyway, he's one of the people at the Gorman planning session who talks about all the stories they're going to plant to
Hmm.
make the galaxy
Hmm.
feel like Gormans are elitists and entitled and all that.
Hmm.
So Ken, we haven't done like a big breakdown of Mask of Fear, but what did you like about that first book, and what are you most excited for in this follow up?
Alexander Freed, one of our great Star Wars authors, I think him diving in deep to the time period, and he got one
Hmm.
of the, much like Andor, getting the, and I was with it too, of like, wow, this is ripped from the headlines that you wrote
Hmm.
3 years ago. This is happening now. I still think that's fascinating. I still think it's important and makes Star Wars even more important as time goes on. I really loved that he was able to, in a familiar time arena of time, was able to take Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and kind of explore the relationship in a way that I hadn't thought of them being a little bit at odds or not fully trusting each other, and you just kind of grow up, especially original trilogy, of like everyone on the rebellion was got along. It was Team A versus Team B on the dark side, and everything was good. I love exploring through all the Star Wars shows and books during this era, but I love exploring things that I hadn't expected with their relationship and diving in deep to actually explore the complexity of their relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, I love the complexity of them being aligned in their perspective, but not in how to accomplish their goals. And I think what I loved about it the most is that, yeah, really at the very beginning of the Empire, sometimes you can watch, Revenge of the Sith. When Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, it's like, and then what happened? Vader and Palpatine just kind of hung out, bored, not
Mhm.
getting much resistance from the galaxy. And I just love how much this whole 19 years have been fleshed out. But seeing that Mothma and Bail both immediately came up with a concrete plan to address how awful the situation was, and it didn't work. I love that they both came up with a plan to basically use the channels of government, media, public opinion, all of the sort of legitimate levers of power to defang Palpatine a little bit, and then realize, oh, that is impossible, and we are in for a long haul, and we have to accept that. We are in for a long haul. We're not just going to flip this real quick. Great. If people haven't read it, Mothma is trying a political maneuver using all of her skills to gather support. I love Bail's story that he's like, I don't believe the Jedi were traitors, and I bet I can get the galaxy to believe me. That's to fight it on a propaganda level, and to address also some of the how quickly the Jedi become we don't speak about those traitors. So well done. So well done. And then, it's kind of a 3-part story. So you got all this really fascinating stuff with Mothma and Bail kind of slowly figuring out how they're going to have to change and evolve, and Saw just being like, told you, I'm going to blow stuff up. And that's part of what's, so fascinating about Saw's story arc is you do want to pump your fist, because sometimes he's like, yep, he's a guy who gets it, and he's just going to go out there and he's going to start crushing things. And he doesn't change, and he doesn't evolve, and he just crushes and crushes and crushes. And even the stuff that happens with him in this book isn't particularly productive, and it's very destructive. So I love that contrast, and I'm excited to see where they take it in the next book.
Yeah, I love this list of names. It's not something I would have completely expected, but I'm pleasantly surprised that we'll get to spend more time with these characters. Particularly, Anto Krieger can fight back against being called slow and stupid. He can, or maybe it confirms it.
I saw the cover art before I read that he was in it, and I just saw him and was like, oh, that's probably Anto Krieger, because they've been so cruel about him. And that, out of this list of characters, who are you excited to spend more time with from the new names from Andor?
Honestly, Lita Mothma. I think we got such great stuff with her. I think it was more not to serve the Mon story, but it was fallen Mon more than Perrin. But Perrin being there too is cool. But Lita Mothma, I think, especially at this point in the timeline, a little older, a little more either wiser or stubborn in her views of her mother. Who knows? I'm excited to explore that by actually getting into the thoughts of a character, like a novel will allow you to do.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for quality Clea time. I feel like she was always a cool character, but kind of running in the background in season 1, and then we got so much more and more of her in season 2, and then that just fabulous episode that locked the character into such great clarity. So I was getting to spend more time with her. And then in terms of what novels can do that sometimes television shows or movies don't have time for, is I'm so excited for more clarity and nuance in Luthen and Mothma's relationship. Because Luthen at one point in Andor says, you asked me to set up a network. I did. But then Luthen also, so that's a line that sort of gives agency to Mothma. But then Luthen often acts and other people talk like Mothma's just the bank. And so and these are characters expressing their opinions. So I'm really excited to get into this book and see how do both of them feel, where's the rebellion at, and who is most responsible for it, and how much are they communicating to Bail,
Yeah, I think that's it could be a great use of this. Again, I was saying I was surprised about these players, but one of the things I think Andor did, and maybe I rubbed up against it. I don't want to speak for you, but season 1, I had this no, hold on. I've had years of thinking who was responsible for the rebellion, and we didn't know who was Luthen. It was a new guy, and not that he got too much credit, but the shows about those characters. But you know what I mean, where it's it kind of literally changed some of the information about how the rebellion came to be in a very intriguing way. Very happy where it landed, and we get to play with these characters. So I'm excited to see if this book, and I trust it will, Rebecca Romaner's great Star Wars writer, if it will kind of like take all the new and really entangle it with things a lot of us grew up with and having thoughts of how the rebellion came to be. And even, by Star Wars Rebels 2014, we're starting to learn more, and it's leaning into that prologue for the New Hope novelization, or even, as I've said before, the description of Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi. It's almost a treatment for some of the stuff you see later on in Rebels. So I think that's interesting to kind of combine these two worlds, these two views of it.
Yeah, I really agree with you, because I think, I did have a little pushback on season 1 when it felt like we've introduced a new character in Luthen to maybe take away some of Mothma's agency. But as the show developed, and is clearly a very nuanced show, I feel like they're both responsible in different ways, and I want characters to have different opinions. It feels like, well, who was responsible for the Beatles? Was it John or Paul? Like, well, there isn't a dictionary answer that is the truth, right? That is a matter of interviews and opinions and who was there. And one limo driver will say nothing happens without John. And, one recording artist will say Paul was the force. Everybody thinks it was John, but it's like, and I'm happy to have nuanced storytelling like that. If these two people work together and bail, and at different times in different ways, they took different kinds of leadership, and different people are going to have different opinions about it. Is fantastic.
Yeah, you also just accidentally pitched a great idea for a doc that someone can now steal, unless you want to make it after your latest horror short, called The Fifth Beatle, and just 2 hours of debating who was the actual official fifth Beatle.
Was it Pete Best?
Was it Pete Best? Was it Stu Sutcliffe, George Martin, Murray the K? There's Brian Epstein. Yeah, love that. But yeah, no, I absolutely know what you mean.
That's hilarious. So many of these Andor characters are making their first appearance in publishing, to my knowledge, unless I'm missing something. Would you want some of their stories to continue in publishing, or being saved for the screen? Because we're kind of in this interesting point where a lot of the characters lived on after the events of Andor. We have Vel and Clea and Mothma, and even Dedra in prison. Where are you at with that sort of wanting more of their stories? Publishing is the right place for it, an easy place for it, because you don't have to pay the actors. But these actors are the right age right now, and I would like them to not be boxed in by too many publishing stories. Where do you sit with all that?
I would love for some live action stuff to continue with some of these characters. I think a lot of folks have said this before, obviously, but Clea and Vel working together undercover during the Galactic Civil War to do dastardly secret agent things for Rebellion. Like, sign me up, right? You definitely get the sense that Tony has done his time in Star Wars, and I think changed his publicly the way he kind of seemed to speak about it early on, especially the Rogue One stuff till now. I think it affected him in a very positive way, but I just don't see it going on with him, and so that it starts to change the nature of it. Again, reaching across to the Game of Thrones world. I love House of the Dragon. I actually really do think it's wonderful. But they brought a new team and half of the old team, Miguel Sapochnik, and it didn't quite work, and it has felt different, and it's still a great show. It's not the same, right? It's not the same vibe. It's its own thing, and I wonder if a dream of that kind of series, Dan Gilroy runs it. Like, I would trust him to do that. But you know what I mean? Where it's like, I think we'd all want Tony to come back to do a third season of this stuff. And that would be great. So I think, not that this is the only avenue we have to explore, but I think right now it's the best place to explore it. And I do like that there's a lot of this time jump in the book series. Still leaves a lot of fertile ground to play with. These are all fascinating characters. So I don't want to sound like I'm settling for publishing. That's never what we mean when we kind of talk about it, but it's not live action. And it's not going to be animated. So I'm good with this right now to see where we can go with it.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I'm thrilled with this because it's jumping back in the timeline, and I don't think there's any, nobody is going to be pitching this television show or movie to go back in time. I think I'm so excited. I love the characters of Vel and Clea and Mothma, and even, Dedra's fate after the Galactic Civil War ends is fascinating to me. If she survives Narkina, and there's been such great storytelling in like the Alphabet Squadron about like, how do we handle Imperials? Do we find a way back for them in society, or do we lock them up? But even Mandalorian dealt with that really well with in season 3.
Version, yeah.
But there's something just so exciting to me about Vel and Clea and Mothma in particular, growing up with the original trilogy and kind of wondering, what is the rest of the Galactic Civil War like? What is it kind of like for not our main heroes? We've gotten some of that in comics, but just like Vel and Clea and Mothma's perspective of going through the rebellion would be just like, I'm pitching Andor without Andor. Like that old comic, Garfield without Garfield. But screw it, call it Mothma and have it be, some of the characters we met and new ones making their way through the rebellion. And I mean, there's a lot in modern canon that's been established of like Mothma getting off Yavin just in case the Death Star does destroy Yavin. So, she's obviously not on Hoth and that. So there's like lots of, I don't know. I feel like it's exciting to feel like you have these characters who exist who are a viewpoint to a different perspective on the Galactic Civil War than Han and Leia and Luke's.
Yeah. You're talking to the war over lore guy for years on early ForceCenter. Give me the war. We've talked about it. We're not alone in a Star Wars band of brothers. Like, look at Rebel soldiers or Clone War era soldiers too. That's probably come up to. There's that kind of approach, but I get what you're saying here in a lot of ways. Like Han and Luke and Leia, they're superstars. And Dark Horse, right before they lost license, I know they got the part of the comic license back, but when they lost it in a big way back like 2012, 13 range, someone can correct me. They had a little short series, like it was 4 issues of looking at Han, Luke, Leia, maybe Chewie, can't remember, but from someone else's perspective, and the characters always kind of had this. They're Hall of Famers,
Yeah,
I'm a utility player.
Yeah,
exactly, and I do like that. But Mothma's not that. Clea and Vel aren't that to me. But what you're talking about is we're getting these movies at heightened moments in the Galactic Civil War, but we got years to play with, and it's fertile ground. Again,
yeah. And that will probably be a book series, but it's thrilling to think these actors are that age. So anyway, this is a little bit of a dream tangent there, the Andor without Andor pitch. But getting back to the books, my last question for you, Ken, is the third book in this trilogy is set to come out next year, 2027. How do you think it might tie into the celebration of 50 years of Star Wars? Because nothing that comes out in 2027, I think, is just going to be like, hey, here you go. I think almost everything is going to be aware that it is landing in a milestone year for Star Wars.
I would love to know if there's something specific out there from someone like, was it Michael Sigline or something like that on the publishing side of the intentionality behind this series and the time jump. Because when the story came out, it's a bit of a time jump. And again, maybe it was announced early on. I don't remember. I was like, oh, you're missing some of the I'll say it for the third time today, fertile ground of this formation of the Empire and the early days of that. So now that means you can tell at some other spot. I like this time jump because then, you're right. It's going to push us even closer to the events of A New Hope in the 50th year. And to get to via the pages of a novel, get even more information, leading us into that story in this expansion of the lore kind of way. I'm intrigued by that. And 50 years ain't no small number, and I think it's appropriate that we'll have the celebration in different ways, all through different kind of Star Wars media.
Yeah, if there's news out there about when the timeline, the exact timeline for when this book is set, I have not managed to dig that up this morning. A part of me is like, in this whole sort of building of the rebellion, one of the things I'm most excited to see is sort of the start of Yavin. I love how the Andor show deals with Yavin was started in contrast to the way Luthen was running things. Only Luthen holds all the knowledge, and he's the chess master, and nobody can be together. And I think mostly Bail, I would imagine, saying, no, we got to do this a different way. But it's so presented as Cassian and Vel chose this iteration of the rebellion. So a part of me wants to see, like, really, like, how did that start? But another part of me with the 2027 wants it to be, quite close to Rogue One: A New Hope to celebrate that. And in a way, I mean, I know Rogue One is this up to a point of this sort of really reminding us of the political, but if the story could be attached to A New Hope and almost be like, if this book could be a celebration of the prologue of the novelization of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And just a big sort of celebration of Star Wars has always been political. I understand A New Hope doesn't wear it on its sleeve, but it's baked into the DNA. If half this book was about like Biggs's defection, and really remind you of like, it's always been political. It's one of the motivating forces of this entire thing we celebrate. I would love that for its 50th anniversary.
I love you bring it in the prologue again, and yeah, that'd be fun. And we always say, if you have not had a chance to read the New Hope novelization, do it. It's just fun. But that prologue's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it tells us a lot. So that is our look at some book news, some Grogu news, and excited to talk more about Mando and Grogu and Maul. It's a hopping time.
Hopping time. Here we go. We're picking up again. Business is about to pick up. Hey, we're happy you're here. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. If you're new to us on the podcast side, hey, reach out. Let us know you're listening to the podcast side. Or if you listen to the video side, you're new here, like, subscribe, leave a comment, super thanks, hype the video, all the things that truly do help. As Joseph said up top. We are still not, we don't with a picture that we're fighting for our survival, but it's always tough out there in the digital media world, and we could use your support now more than ever. So do that. But also you can consider going to Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Get into the Discord and talk to folks there. Get to ask us questions for Star Wars questions. You get to call in to our live shows when we do them on Friday. So support us there. Get some merch at TeePublic or Fourth Wall. You can also find the podcast on Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Tune in, all the places. Just search, you'll find us. Follow me at Cadnapsock or my website, cadnapsock.com, to leap to all the things I do, highlighting my show, The Blathering Live. We go live 2 to 3 times a week. It is an AM radio talk show for a modern age. Check it out. Get into the community there. Joseph, where can they find and follow you?
Ken, I think you're very multi-talented, but I think one of those sort of like, you were born for this is... talk radio. So I'm so glad that you're doing the blathering and spending some quality time on it.
Yeah. There is a rule over there, though. No Star Wars. There's no one can call in with Star Wars questions.
I think that's good. I think sometimes you got to compartmentalize, right?
You know where to find the Star Wars talk. Is what we got.
Yep, exactly. For me, you can follow me on the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw. A thing that I'd like to highlight right now is over the last several years, I've made a bunch of different short films, really just kind of trying to learn the ropes and make sure that I wanted to spend pretty much all of my not ForceCenter time making films. And then I kept being like, well, I should put those on YouTube. But then I kept being distracted actually making a feature film. Or then I'd be like, for sure, this day, I'm going to release this film. Oh, an awful tragedy happened in the world. I'm not going to release the film today. But last week, I started releasing films. And for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm going to be releasing a new short film every Thursday. Last Thursday, I released the first one, which is called The Narrator. It is starring the great Phil LaMarr. Of course, Star Wars listeners know him as the voice of Bail Organa. Many other things. But if you're interested, that is on my YouTube page, Joseph Scrimshaw. Just search for it on YouTube, The Narrator. Please give it a watch. Please give it a like, a comment, and all the different YouTube things. Thank you all so much for the support.
We really do appreciate it. Jennifer does as well. She'll be back in April, of course. We are done for now. A second round of the news. That is it. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.